Great. I'm pleased to be here with you all at this two-day gathering on behalf of Arts Presenters, which is the National Association for the Performing Arts Presenting Field and the initiator of the Creative Campus Initiative. So I want to...
Apparently we're having some problem with people not being able to hear on the wings, and if so, I think the sound's actually fairly good in the house. If you'd like to move, you're in the auditorium.
So I just want to take my few minutes to highlight a couple of the studies we've undertaken and our efforts to help our constituents rethink the cultural framework from which we've been operating, building new venues, planning for sustainability, and serving our communities. So first, the Performing Arts Infrastructure Study that we conducted with the Bolt Center for Arts Management at U Wisconsin in 2007 and 2008. Our goals were really to assess the cultural infrastructure in the United States, performing arts facilities that were professional grade, and also to analyze that infrastructure for potential business and performing program alternatives to improve the vitality and sustainability at local and regional levels. And the impetus came from three places: our members, asking a lot of questions about how to build, operate new renovated facilities. They wanted metrics, information, research, data on what's the first 5 years look like. We had one of the largest artist management and booking agencies come to us and say they were having difficulty navigating the landscape with the growing number of new and renovated centers, and as they put it, staff who didn't know the business and weren't equipped to present the performing arts certainly their way. They put up some dollars for this study. And then finally, the U.S. Conference of Mayors approached us in 2006. Tom McClyman, their deputy, who I'd worked with over the years, came and said, here's our dilemma with performing arts centers. All of our mayors want to know how to get one, what can they do with the one they've got, and how do these things work? We thought once we built them and equipped them, they sustain themselves. Aren't they economic engines? So they wanted some guidance. And we began working with the American Architectural Foundation and some other organizations on a kind of one-off of the Mayor's Institute on City Design for the building and leveraging of performing arts assets, and trying to set up a series of design fora and symposia and research and development opportunities to provide some professional development for our field. So we're raising some funds for that now. And in doing this study, we created a pretty robust database, a data analysis system. There are about 20,000 professional-grade performing arts facilities in that database, still housed at the Bolt Center, drawn from a set of 63,000 organizations. We did some interviews and a literature review of trends. Just some summary points. For more than 2 decades, there's been a building boom. New facilities, significant renovations, and refits that reshape the infrastructure of live performing arts opportunity and experience. And the growth is not just coming from nonprofit arts organizations, it's coming from city and county governments, higher education, and even public schools are in the act with the addition of new performing facilities for education and community connection. And this provides clear potential for extending and expanding the live performing arts across the country, but it comes at a cost, with new and renovated facilities carrying higher overhead, operating costs, and often larger requirements for ongoing maintenance and repair, that temple keeping that Colleen referred to earlier. So this changes the risk equation on the operating side for presenters and performers and reshapes the business of producing and presenting and sustaining live performing arts. So behind the numbers in the interviews, we tried to capture the experience of the organizations and the practitioners themselves. And we know and have talked about in many of these kinds of conversations the experience of dramatic shifts in the way they're doing their business, the environment, and the relationship to community. I'm not going to detail the factors, they're in the report. So you might ask, why do we keep building? And despite these kinds of challenges, at extraordinary expense, we continue to plan and construct across the country. We're watching a $500 million renovation in Calgary, Canada, the Epcor Center, and how that's coming along. So these things are starting to cost the price of stadia. And in fact, for mayors in cities, they are the new stadia, the new economic development tool in their toolbox. And we know the realities of some of the opening of some of these centers and some of the downfalls. You know, the Miami's Arch Center, the Kimmel Center, the California Center for Performing Arts in Escondido, which is close to closing after becoming a rental facility. So it underscores this growing concern about an industry heavy on fixed assets and overhead expenses, and large facilities that were promoted on the basis of some civic impact and public need and public benefit. So this list of perceived benefits to the arts and to the community, which are coming to question as well as we see centers fall into some trouble. So we know that the investment in human programming and technology could also advance these goals, but those kinds of funds are more difficult to raise. So the question is being raised about an imbalance in the system with continued capital fundraising and development of facilities. Some say there is an imbalance. Others say this is the unique power of place and of physical space and the ability to catalyze greater annual giving to the performing arts. And certainly new cultural construction has extended the impact overall of resources allocated to the performing arts. Well, we also took a look at a couple of other trends that are in the marketplace, the whole pro-am revolution. This idea that, and that there was a question about that earlier, professional grade production is available to a large range of individuals. That offers new platforms for expression, for creativity. Audiences are creating their own seasons, their own culture. There's a desire to participate as a creator and to get closer to the artist and their work. There's a reconsideration of place. We're all reconsidering the space between our home, our work, and leisure. New online communities are recalibrating the concept of friends and neighbors. And now we have a new economic architecture where we're faced with the challenge of sustaining a business model and infrastructure that is increasingly distant from the emerging forms of cultural experience and expression. So as a field, we think there's a need to recalibrate our work in response to these extensive shifts in audience expectation and preference. And this extraordinary infrastructure that we've built up over time that connects artists and audiences is going to have to evolve quickly, as others have mentioned, to respond to these kinds of shifts and changes, or potentially could face decreasing vitality and relevance in the lives of their communities. We did a little greening study this past year, small, with Booz Allen Hamilton and one of our green leaders, Wolf Trap Foundation for the Arts, which is part of the National Park Service. And it was the first industry-wide look at how green we are. What are we doing to be more environmentally sustainable? And we didn't have a true national sample in the responses, and we extended this beyond our organization. But we did get a baseline of information and data to get a picture of what green sustainability plans, policies, programs, or thinking performing arts organizations were undertaking. And we had empirical data from about 324 organizations, so clearly more work to be done. 83% of the respondents said their organizations have implemented some kind of green initiative. Only 24% had formalized policies and goals for their organizations. And about 1/3 cited a lack of knowledge, resources, and not just dollar resources as the main barrier to going green. So most organizations have some kind of informal program with some ad hoc initiatives. A few organizations are leveraging the full scope of their impact by connecting with their audiences. And people complain about wanting to do that and not really having the ability to do that and influence the behavior and have the greatest environmental impact. And then others are just moderately effective in communicating their work to the greater public and impacting their behavior. So our members have asked us to keep this in front of them. We've been doing a couple of things. We're working with a group called Dartmouth Consulting Greenpoints Corporation in Florida about a comprehensive sort of cost-effective sustainability assessment program that they've offered in the corporate world for a long time, and they'd like to extend to the nonprofit performing arts community. They help corporations become sustainable and do LEED, ISO 9000 and 14000 certification. Oh, I'm going to have to leave my LA Music Center comments out. All right, thank you.